What's up, everybody? On a podcast now. I'm Alex, and in this video, we gotta talk about GTA 6 yet again. Look, Jason Schreier talked about GTA 6, which means I know how to talk about GTA 6. The man went on a podcast, ladies and gentlemen, and because of that, here we are. So, got some interesting, I don't even know necessarily what to call it. Hopefully, I figure it out by the time I have to title this video. But he goes over, kind of what's going on there. The game is not content complete. That is one of the biggest things, I believe, he was talking about. He kind of talks about, just in his opinion, the likelihood of it hitting the new November date, and what it means to Take-Two, obviously from the stocks. So an okay amount of stuff. Some of it I think is a little bit more of him speculating mixed in with what he's heard, and you got to be careful when those kind of things come out, and obviously people have taken this and ran with it. I think within the first half an hour, there were already people that were putting up very, kind of misleading headlines. We have from GTA 6 Countdown. Insider Jason Schreier shares new GTA 6 details. The last he has heard, the game was not content complete. He believes it's really hard to say right now if the game will release in November and doesn't think anyone at Rockstar is 100% certain that they'll make it. This release date, though, does feel a little bit more real than the last two. Developers are still finalizing missions, adding stuff, and deciding what makes it into the final game. He hopes they're done with it soon so they can start bug fixing. Rockstar can't settle for anything less than perfection, as the stakes are high. The entire stock of Take-Two lives or dies on this game. They would rather let it slip again than release in a compromised state. And to that point, their fiscal year ends in March of 27, so they do have a little bit of buffer if they wanted to, push the game. He also says that PlayStation is the main platform for the game, and Sony is planning its entire lineup around it. And this came from Triple Click Podcast. You can listen to the thing on Spotify if you so desire. So a couple big things there. I would say that really, okay, it's not content complete. I don't think that's that big of a deal. I think a lot of people will latch on to that, right, to make the determination of, will it be delayed? I think you see a headline saying the game is not content complete, and the first thing in your mind is it's getting delayed. Now, it very well might, right? And I do think the idea that they have until the end of March of next year to release this thing to end up in that fiscal year, I think that is a very big deal, because do they care if the money flows in February, or do they care if the money flows in November? I think that late-ish, late November period that they have it locked down to is probably the most beneficial. Black Friday and just, I think there's probably stats to show, more shopping would probably occur in November than February. I think there'd be something out there for that. But at the same time, GTA is its own thing. And I think if it's going to sell 18 million in the first 2 days, I think it would do that in February. I think it would do that in November. I think it would do that, New Year's Eve. I think it would do that in July. I think it would do it literally whenever it comes out, right? That's kind of the thing with it. Does it really matter? And in a way, and even if you go based off what insiders are saying, right, it doesn't really matter, as long as it's in that time period. It doesn't really, they could move it. And so all the other points that were kind of backing that up, and I don't think it actually takes a rocket scientist to say the stock thing. If GTA fails, they're done. I don't even know what you would do. Yeah, I've never really put much thought in if GTA sells 1 million units after a day instead of 10, 15, 20 million. I've just always assumed it was going to do unbelievable, unreal numbers. Maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe you should be a little bit more cautious. The biggest thing that can be said because of that, if it needs 2 months, it's getting those 2 months, right? Because if it comes out, if the difference between releasing it and it's a Cyberpunk situation and it starts really slow, if it's say, I don't even think Cyberpunk did actually start slow, but say it were to start really slow because of the bugs, heads would roll, and Take-Two. So it's just not going to happen. And I think, you kind of balance all those things and you start to wonder. I made a predictions video, I believe, last night, went up earlier this morning, and in one of my prediction videos, I said I think that GTA will stick to this date. So it's in my prediction that it'll stay. To the earlier comment, he was kind of talking nobody really knows either way. Nobody at Rockstar is going to look you in the face and say, oh yeah, we know 100% sure that game is coming out in the fall. But they also, again, the general feel is it feels better. They feel better about it happening in the fall than they did, in the past. And to the content completion thing, as people have been, kind of coming back to this, on social media. Red Dead was kind of in a different era. It's approaching, 7-8 years. Is actually, again, scary how long it's been since Red Dead 2. So it kind of is a different era of making games, granted. But that game was, obviously in the works for a long time, but they were changing stuff and adding stuff into that game also for a long time. I think people were talking about in terms of voice lines and motion capture and stuff, like they were doing that just 3, 4, 5 months before the game came out. I do understand this game is going to be just different, better technology or more advanced technology. So if you're doing stuff kind of up to the last minute, it probably is not the exact same thing as Red Dead, but they're no strangers to if they were done now, would it be nice? Yeah, but I think if they needed to do bug fixes for 5 months, they could do it in 5. If they wanted 10 months to do it, they can do it in 10. To do it in 10, though, I think you'd have to be done next month. You'd have to kind of decide on everything. So we'll see. I think that the first investor call for Take-Two, I believe it's early February, sometime around this time next month. I think I saw, or thought I saw on Twitter. So hopefully we'll see something there. And really, when I say something there, I just mean you stick to the date. Every investor call that comes and they stick to the date and they don't say it's delayed is another time that you're closer to the game coming out. So interesting stuff for sure. I think it'll land, but you know what? I would say if it doesn't, we now kind of have this, because I didn't really think about that with the fiscal year. If it doesn't land and people are maybe afraid of it getting delayed maybe another year, I don't think maybe it gets delayed 3 months, from November to February, something like that. We'll see, though, one step at a time. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.